My life is a complete mess. Right after I got back from work, my wife Lisa, who I've been married to for 12 years, began yelling at me. I was scared of this happening, but knew it would eventually. To be completely honest, my wife had every reason to be mad at me. I was having an affair. However, to defend myself, she was also unfaithful, and she started it at least 6 months before I did. Even though I've known about Lisa's unfaithfulness for a long time, it seems like she just found out about mine. When I opened the front door, Lisa yelled at me, calling me a terrible name. From that moment, our conversation only got worse. Even though I could barely make out what she was saying, it was obvious that Lisa had found out about my relationship with another woman, and she wasn't happy about it. I couldn't find a way to interject or calm the situation, so I just stood there, silently staring at the ground, wondering how to escape if things turned violent. Once Lisa had cooled down a bit, she asked, "So, what do you have to say for yourself? Why shouldn't I just file for divorce?" I replied softly, "First off, I know you've been having an affair for the past 9 years, so I agree. Maybe we should get a divorce." "What? What's going on?" Lisa was shocked, her face turning pale. I reached into my briefcase and handed Lisa several photos I had brought. They revealed her affair. I wasn't sure how she'd react, but what happened next caught me off guard. Let me clarify, Lisa is very wealthy and could easily use her lawyers against me. However, instead of getting angry as I anticipated, she dropped the photos and began to cry. Then, with a look of deep pain and sorrow, she turned to me. Her next words completely surprised me. "I don't want to divorce you. I love you." Then she hurried to our bedroom. Her response left me stunned and even more puzzled than usual. Lisa is the most beautiful woman I've ever known. I never imagined, not even in my wildest dreams, that we'd end up together. And when we did get married, I expected Lisa to grow tired of our relationship and leave me within a year or two. In our marriage, there was this funny thing about Lisa's family being super rich and insisting on a prenup. Naturally, I agreed, but there was one clause that almost made me walk out. Lisa wanted it in writing that we wouldn't have any kids, and after some thinking, I went along with it. But by the end of this tale, I ended up with 4 children. Can you believe how messed up my life is? Let me give you some background. Lisa Gravois is my wife, and I'm David Todman. She didn't take my last name because her family runs a top-notch perfume company, Gravois Scents, and her name is a big deal in that world. Since she's a part owner, it made sense for her to stick with her maiden name. I wasn't thrilled at first, but it's worked out okay over the years. Because we kept our own last names, a lot of folks don't even realize we're married, which gives me some privacy. I wasn't kidding when I said at the start of this story that I couldn't believe Lisa chose me. She's drop-dead gorgeous, always has been. Lisa's tall, almost 6 feet, with long black hair and these stunning blue eyes. She's got the body of a model with slightly bigger breasts. Actually, she did some modeling when she was younger. I'm not too shabby myself, but I'm no movie star. I'm a bit over 6 feet with sandy hair, and I try to stay fit. But compared to Lisa, I always felt like she was way out of my league. I met Lisa at a party hosted by my college roommate and his wife in the Hamptons. He was a successful commodities trader, and his wife Beth was close friends with Lisa from their time at Vassar. When I was introduced to Lisa, I was really impressed, like every other guy in the room. All the single guys and even some married ones were captivated by her. But she was way above my league, so I started chatting with other single women at the party. A friend once advised me to stick to dating girls in my league, or maybe even lower leagues, to avoid wasting time on someone who's not interested. It might sound like a cowardly dating strategy, and I don't completely follow it, but I do have my own version. I categorize women based on whether I think they're out of my league or not. Why bother pursuing someone who will reject me anyway? I like to keep it real. Unless there's a girl who's clearly out of my league but known to be easy, then I might give it a shot. But that night, Lisa seemed to be constantly near me. At first, I thought it was just coincidence, but after a few times, it was obvious she was into me. It was flattering, but also uncomfortable. I figured she was just slumming it, and when she got bored, she'd move on. I wasn't keen on being someone's project for the month. Maybe that was her plan, but I didn't let it get that far. Yet after that party, Lisa kept pursuing me. I'm not bad-looking, but why would Lisa Gravois be interested in me? I'm just a software salesman. Don't get me wrong, I'm good at what I do. After 4 years with the same company, I was one of the senior sales directors, making a decent mid-5-figure salary. But compared to Lisa's $40 million a year salary without bonuses, I felt like she was just toying with me. Maybe my lack of interest motivated Lisa, but eventually she convinced me. It took her 4 weeks to persuade me to go on a date with her. 6 months passed before we slept together, and a little over a year before we tied the knot. Our wedding was ridiculously extravagant. There were 600 guests, and rumor has it that it cost about $6 million. But to one of the Gravois heirs, that's just a drop in the bucket. Naturally, her family insisted on a prenuptial agreement. I know it was hard for Lisa to ask me, but I didn't mind. I understood why it was necessary, and besides, I made a decent salary myself, so I wasn't interested in her money. When I agreed to sign, Lisa was thrilled. She explained that her family would disown her if she married me without one, but she made it clear that she was going to marry me no matter what. Still, I couldn't help but wonder how long the marriage would last. According to the prenup, if we divorced before 3 years, I'd only get $500,000. I was shocked. I had never heard anyone say only before $500,000, but it got even better. For every year we stayed married, after 3 years, I'd receive another $500,000 or a share based on the percentage of the year we were married. In case of divorce, neither of us could claim the other's assets. But the best part was knowing that I got to be with the most beautiful woman in the world. And if things went south, I'd walk away with at least $500,000. Of course, the prenup also stated that we both agreed not to have children. Although I eventually accepted that condition, Lisa's parents weren't happy about it. But Lisa wasn't close to her parents. She claimed they favored her brothers and that they only saw each other during board meetings. Besides, she had already fought with them about having children years ago. It's no surprise we didn't see much of them over the years. And when they did visit, it was uncomfortable, especially for me, because they looked down on me. The initial 3 years of our marriage were fantastic. I genuinely felt loved by Lisa during those happy times. However, shortly after our 3rd anniversary, I uncovered Lisa's infidelity. Our marriage was quite unusual. Lisa's job required her to travel extensively. I'd estimate she was away about 1 week out of every month. In the early years, I joined her on her trips whenever possible. There were occasional stretches where she'd be home for 5 or 6 weeks in a row, but those were rare. Yet, whenever she returned, our intimacy was intense. My realization of Lisa's affair began with a newspaper photograph. Due to her status, she often appeared in the society pages. So I made a habit of checking that section daily. One day I glanced at a picture from a party in Paris and almost missed it. It took a magnifying glass to confirm my suspicion. In the background of the photo, I saw someone resembling Lisa. With the magnifying glass, I confirmed it was her. Now, you might ask, what's the big deal? It was significant because at that time, Lisa was supposed to be in Japan, handling business matters for the company. Sure, there could have been various reasons for her being in Paris, yet I couldn't understand why she'd change her plans without informing me. I needed to learn more. Maybe it was just a last-minute change in her schedule, but I had to investigate. Initially, when we got married, Lisa wanted me to quit my job to travel with her. I declined, as I didn't want to rely solely on her financially. Eventually, she stopped asking. Marrying into a family like Lisa's comes with abundant resources, but I avoided using her money because I knew she paid close attention to finances. Instead, I used my own checking account, where my salary was deposited, mainly for buying Lisa birthday and Christmas gifts. It's not easy shopping for someone who seems to have everything. It bothered me tremendously, keeping me up at night and affecting my appetite. I felt compelled to find out what was going on, so I dipped into my personal funds and hired a private investigation firm. I made sure to choose a firm that the Gravois companies had never used before, one that had a good reputation from St. Louis. After spotting the photo in the paper, I noticed Lisa's schedule had her traveling much more than before. With the new schedule, she was away for about 2 weeks each month. However, I was puzzled because our intimate life remained strong. Lisa always appeared genuinely upset when she left for her trips and ecstatic upon her return. At times, I almost convinced myself I was being paranoid. About a month later, my suspicions were confirmed. I received the report from the private investigator along with the painful photos. It was a new level of anguish for me. The report identified Lisa's lover as Gerard Lavelle, whose family was deeply involved in banking across Europe. Gerard was the president of the family holding company. Gerard and Lisa had grown up together, and there was once speculation they'd marry. However, they split, with Lisa marrying me and Gerard marrying a woman named Teresa Apopoulos from Greece, whose father was heavily involved in shipping. Gerard and Teresa had 3 children. According to the report, Gerard and Lisa ended things because he desired children, which Lisa adamantly opposed. Gerard's family threatened to disinherit him if he agreed to Lisa's childless condition. Additionally, The report revealed that Gerard's wife had passed away 6 months prior, leaving him free to pursue a relationship with Lisa. For 5 days, I wandered around feeling down, trying to figure out what was happening. It was clear that Gerard was Lisa's first love, and it seemed they had reignited their romance. I couldn't understand why Lisa hadn't initiated a divorce. It was all confusing, because whenever she returned home, Lisa showered me with affection. If I didn't know better, I'd think she loved only me. Not only was Lisa genuinely excited to see me, but our intimacy was incredible. You're starting to see how messed up my life was, and it was about to get worse. My initial reaction to the investigator's report was to confront Lisa and end our marriage. But after much thought, 3 reasons stopped me. First, I still loved Lisa, and when we were together, it felt like she loved me too. Second, our physical relationship was amazing. Lastly, there was the prenuptial agreement. From a purely financial perspective, staying married to Lisa earned me $1,370 for each day we remained married. After Lisa tried to entice me before leaving on another trip, I made up my mind. I thought, forget it, I'll stay married, but I won't stay faithful. Even after deciding that, I had doubts about whether I could actually go through with cheating on Lisa. One day, while pondering my dilemma, one of my saleswomen, Thelma Johnson, popped into my office. Thelma was reasonably attractive, but nowhere near Lisa's level. Still, she had a great body and a friendly personality. If Lisa was an 11 or 12, Thelma was about an 8.5. "David, you've seemed off all week," she said. "Anything I can do to help?" Thelma was a great colleague, and I respected her sales skills. She had recently divorced her husband after catching him with the mail lady on their kitchen table. She ended up with a new table along with the divorce papers. Surprisingly, she didn't seem as devastated about the split as I expected. It wasn't the first time she caught her husband cheating. We had worked together closely for over 6 months to land the Harris Enterprise contract, which secured our bonuses for the year. Despite Thelma's attraction to me, we maintained a professional relationship. Still, she was a good listener, so I decided to confide in her about my Lisa situation. "Yeah," I confessed. "I've been distracted. Just found out Lisa's cheating on me. Can't decide whether to divorce her or not." Thelma's response was quick. "Divorce her and move on," she said. "It's not that simple," I explained. "I signed a prenup with Lisa. Each year I stay married, I get $500,000. That's almost $1,400 a day, which isn't pocket change." I listed all the other benefits of staying married to Lisa: the luxury cars, parties, designer clothes, expensive watches, and travel on the company jet. Thelma acknowledged it was a significant consideration. She promised to think it over and let me know if she had any insights. The next day, Thelma walked into my office and shut the door. "I might have a solution for your problem," she said, taking a seat across from me. "What do you think I should do about Lisa?" I asked. "I think you should stick with her," Thelma replied, adding, "but with some changes." "What kind of changes?" I inquired, smiling. I expected her to suggest I stay married and cheat on Lisa. While I was leaning that way, I hadn't fully committed to the idea. Despite still caring for Lisa, her betrayal hurt, and I struggled with it. But Thelma's suggestion caught me off guard. "I suggest you remain married to Lisa but have an affair of your own," she proposed. I raised my hand to pause her. "I've thought about that already." "No, my plan goes beyond that," Thelma interjected. "Let me explain fully before you kick me out." "Sure," I agreed, signaling for her to continue. "Go ahead." "David, I think you're struggling with this decision for 2 main reasons," Thelma started. "Firstly, despite what Lisa did, you still love her deeply. You can't picture life without her. And secondly, while you've considered having affairs, it doesn't fulfill a crucial desire of yours. You've mentioned wanting children. Having affairs won't satisfy that longing. Sure, you could get someone else pregnant, but that would complicate things and likely end your marriage with Lisa." "I agree with all that," I chimed in, "but I'm not seeing how it helps me solve my dilemma." "I believe I can offer a solution," Thelma said, smiling warmly. "What? Are you suggesting you become my mistress?" "Technically, yes," she replied with a sly grin, "but I have something more in mind." "I'm not sure about this," I said, feeling uneasy. "Let me explain," Thelma urged. I nodded, signaling for her to continue. "You've known me since before you and Lisa got married," Thelma went on. "You may feel Lisa married beneath herself, but I never saw it that way. She's lucky to have you, and she's foolish for risking losing you. But since Lisa's being foolish, I'm not passing up this opportunity. My dating history's been a disaster. I had doubts even before I married Fred last year. I sensed we weren't right for each other, but he seemed kind and loving at first. It wasn't until after we wed that I realized he was controlling and unfaithful. I nodded, allowing Thelma to continue. I've always had feelings for you, but it seemed like you weren't interested in me romantically. We've been close friends for years, but you never saw me in that light. I accepted that and knew I couldn't compete when Lisa entered the picture. But now, with Lisa's actions, there's an opportunity, and I want to explore it before it's gone. So far, Thelma hadn't explained how her plan differed from just being a mistress. You mentioned wanting two things, dealing with Lisa and having children. Lisa's betrayal hurt you deeply and you want to get back at her. Plus, even though you haven't talked much about it, you clearly want kids. I can offer both. After my awful marriage, I swore off getting hitched again. But I really want kids. So here's my proposal. I become your mistress and have your children. I know you don't love me like that, but I think you care about me. We'd keep our affair secret so you can stay with Lisa while I have our kids. It's a win-win. Thelma's proposition shocked and intrigued me. It was messed up, but I liked the idea. Yet I saw potential problems and started listing them. First off, thanks for the offer, I said gratefully. I'm flattered, and it's more generous than I could have expected. But there are issues. Finances would be complicated, then raising the kids their last name, and what if you decide later on that you want to tie the knot? I see the same issues, Thelma admitted, but let me try to tackle them. For money, I own my own place. I suggest we split kid expenses. Your name goes on the birth certificates as the dad, but for now they'll use my last name. I don't plan on marrying again, but who knows? So, let's draft a contract. It includes a clause letting either of us bail with 6 months' notice. If I remarry, you decide custody. If you end it, I get the kids, but you can visit. Either way, you're still recognized as the dad. We sat there, mulling over Thelma's proposal. Finally, I spoke up. I'm intrigued, but not ready to commit. Let's go on some dates to see if we click. Thelma agreed, and we started going out. First, dinners and dancing, then dinner and shows. I enjoyed her company. She was funny and warm. Beats waiting at home for Lisa's return from her trips. On our 5th date, we got intimate in the car. After our 6th date, Thelma suggested, "We're great on dates. Let's test the waters in bed." To me, Lisa and Thelma are both great, but different. We hooked up 2 more times before I headed home. Surprisingly, I didn't feel guilty about cheating on Lisa. Being with Thelma somehow boosted my confidence. The next day, Thelma came into my office beaming. After shutting the door, she leaned over my desk and planted a passionate kiss on me. "Last night proved we're compatible, so what's the next step?" I grinned widely. "Find a lawyer not tied to our companies. Have them draft an agreement, then we'll take it from there." Thelma's smile widened. "I know just the guy, my brother Tim. He's close to me, knows I'm a bit erratic, and warned me about marrying Fred." Off Thelma went, and I returned to work. As days passed, I thought less about the plan. Since Thelma didn't bring it up, I figured she might have had second thoughts. I wasn't going to push the issue. Plus, I leaned more towards just divorcing Lisa and taking the financial hit. It'd still be better than what most men face in divorce. Many deserve it, but some wives are the real culprits. In my case, at least, I'd come out with a good chunk of cash. 2 weeks later, Thelma walked into my office and closed the door. She placed the completed agreement on my desk. "Take your time reviewing it, make any changes you want. If we're both okay with it, we'll sign in front of my brother, who'll arrange witnesses and a notary." I was taken aback because Thelma hadn't mentioned the proposal since our night together, and we hadn't gone on any more dates. I thought the idea had fizzled out. But there it was, the agreement, sitting on my desk. It's amazing how quickly I found myself considering the idea of having Thelma as my mistress and having kids with her again. Thelma's brother covered everything thoroughly, even things we hadn't thought about. One thing that stood out was what would happen to the kids if something happened to either Thelma or me. That sent a shiver down my spine. Tim's solution was clear-cut. If Thelma passed away, Tim and his wife would raise the kids if I stayed with Lisa. If I wanted to acknowledge them later, they'd be mine. If I chose to stay with Lisa, I'd still have full access to any kids Thelma and I had. If they didn't already know, they'd be told I was their dad. If I passed away, the kids would take on my last name, and my estate would go to them, managed as a trust until they turned 25. I was still mulling over my decision when Lisa mentioned on a Monday that her travel schedule would increase the next year. That sealed it for me. The next day, I asked Thelma to set up a meeting with her brother. The meeting with Tim was strictly business. Regardless of his personal thoughts on the agreement, it was clear he cared for his sister and wanted her happiness. "David, you're one lucky guy," Tim said, shaking his head. "I've seen pictures of your wife, and she's stunning. And my sister's no slouch either. Man, I'm jealous." I chuckled at Tim's words, but Thelma shot him a look. "Tim, Gloria's beautiful, and you're lucky to have her." I know, sis, but it'd be great if my secretary offered a deal like this, Tim joked, then quickly added, I'm kidding. Gloria's more than enough for me. Besides, she'd end me if I even suggested something like that. Thelma seemed content, flashing a smile. We refocused on the agreement. One clause outlined scheduling our intimate moments for when Lisa was away, but we adjusted it early on to align with Thelma's fertile days. That first night, Thelma looked stunning in her teddy. Her figure was curvy and inviting. Both of us were eager. At work, Thelma and I remained strictly professional. She informed others that she was done with dating and planned to conceive through artificial means. 3 months later, she called to share the news of her pregnancy. We kept our bed life going during the pregnancy as much as possible. When Thelma went into labor, I regretted not being able to be there due to Lisa's presence at home. However, once it was feasible, I rushed to the hospital to meet Thelma and our son, Gavin. 18 months later, Jennifer was born. Thelma then asked if she could be a stay-at-home mom, confident she had enough finances to last 5 years until both kids started school. I happily agreed, even covertly covering her mortgage and utilities. Although we hadn't planned for more children, Thelma became pregnant again during one of Lisa's trips when she miscalculated her fertile days. Worried about my reaction, she called tearfully to share the news. Instead of anger, I reassured her of my love for her and all our children. Scotty was born while Lisa was away on a trip, allowing me to be present during his birth. I was overjoyed, feeling like I was on cloud 9 for days afterward. Before our third child's arrival, Thelma and I agreed we shouldn't have any more kids. We flipped a coin to decide whether I'd get a vasectomy or she'd get her tubes tied. The coin landed on heads, so Thelma underwent the procedure. Things were going smoothly until Lisa's travel abruptly halted. This disrupted Thelma's and my plans. It felt odd to consider cheating on Lisa when she wasn't involved with Gerard anymore. The situation was confusing. Previously, everyone seemed content, but now tensions were rising. Over time, both Lisa and Thelma grew increasingly frustrated with me. Lisa wanted us to spend more time together, feeling we had grown apart. Meanwhile, Thelma was upset because we hadn't been intimate for weeks. Despite still being with Lisa, guilt affected my performance. I felt trapped in a mess with no clear way out. When I arrived home that day, I found out Lisa had discovered my infidelity. I think you're right, maybe we should divorce, I suggested, feeling relieved that this might resolve my dilemma. Lisa's reaction surprised me. She looked shocked and burst into tears. She expressed her love for me and her unwillingness to end our marriage before running to our bedroom. I followed her, finding her lying on our bed, crying. Sitting beside her, I hugged her tightly. You were right, Lisa. We've been growing apart for years. I thought you wanted a divorce. No, I don't, she replied amid sobs. Then why did you bring it up? I asked, confused. I thought it would shock you into realizing we need to work on our marriage, she explained. Oh, I responded, unsure of what to say next. Listen, Lisa, I began, running my fingers through my hair nervously. I've known about your affair with Gerard for a while. I thought you two were ready to commit to each other. Oh God, no, she gasped. Why didn't you tell me? At first, I was hurt and planned to confront you for a divorce, I admitted. But I realized it would hurt me financially and that I still loved you. Then someone at work suggested another way. Lisa struggled to process everything. Until now, she had no idea I knew about her affair, just as I was unaware of hers. So you have a mistress, Lisa accused, tears streaming down her face. You awful jerk! Get out and leave me alone! This situation was becoming more surreal with each passing moment. I couldn't understand why she was angry at me for having an affair when she started one before me. I saw it as a chance to leave quickly and spend time with Thelma and the kids. I thought things couldn't get worse, but I was mistaken. When I got to Thelma's place, she practically pounced on me. Without giving me a chance to explain, she pulled me into the bedroom, and we had closeness twice in 15 minutes. Afterward, when Thelma calmed down, we finally talked. I thought you lost interest in me, she said softly. With Lisa around all the time, I thought you didn't need me anymore. I was worried sick about losing you. I then told Thelma about my strange encounter with Lisa and her emotional outburst. This made Thelma cry, and my head was spinning with confusion. Why are you crying now? I asked when she settled down a bit. Because it's clear she's still deeply in love with you and will do anything to keep you, Thelma replied. That doesn't make any sense, I argued. She told me to leave, and she's been happily cheating for years. How could she love me? I don't know, Thelma sobbed. But something has changed and she wants to keep you. It's not fair. She tossed you aside and I want you. Feeling lost, I kissed Thelma, made love to her again, and then went to sleep. We made love once more in the morning before I headed to the office, hoping to make sense of the chaos my life had become. But as they say, the best laid plans of mice and men often go awry. That became clear when I found Lisa sitting in my office, looking unhappy. "Good morning, Lisa," I greeted cautiously. "I don't recall you ever coming to my office before. So why are you here today?" "You know why I'm here," Lisa snapped. "We need to talk about your affair." I quickly closed the door and sat down. "All right, what do you want to talk about?" "First off, who is she?" "Her name's Thelma Johnson. She used to work for me." "Wait, did you hire someone to follow me?" "No, a friend of mine saw you kissing her in a restaurant the other day. They tried to follow her after you kissed her passionately, but lost her." "Are you planning to keep seeing her?" "Oh boy," was all I could muster. "Well, are you?" "Lisa, you're not gonna like what I have to say, but you need to hear it. After I spill everything, I think we'll both agree it's time for a divorce." Sadness washed over Lisa's face, but she nodded. "If you hadn't stopped going on your trips, we wouldn't be having this talk," I started. "What do my trips have to do with this?" Lisa asked sharply. "I already told you I knew about your affair," I said bluntly. "You meet up with Gerard during your trips. So, while you were away, Thelma and I got together. You know, what's good for the goose is good for the gander." My attempt at humor didn't land. "I decided since you were cheating, I could too. I tried to keep it too when you were away, but we had extra sessions when Thelma was fertile so she could get pregnant." "You have a child!" Lisa shouted, jumping up. "Lower your voice and sit down," I insisted. "No, we don't have one child, we have 3. You know I always wanted kids and you didn't." After spending what felt like forever trying to get Lisa to respond, she finally said, "I need some time to think about all of this." With that, she got up and left. I figured it wouldn't be long before the company lawyers had the divorce papers ready, maybe a day or two. During that time, I decided it was best not to risk Lisa's anger, so I stayed with Thelma. That night with Thelma was a relief, and yeah, we had a wild time, and yeah, I enjoyed every moment of it. But the next morning, I got a call from Lisa at my office. I thought she was just calling to inform me about the divorce papers, but what she actually said was the last thing I expected. She wanted to meet Thelma and my kids. "Listen, Lisa," I took a firm stance. "I get that you're mad at me, and we can debate whether it's justified. But I won't let you involve my kids in this mess, and I definitely won't let you mistreat them or Thelma." "David," she said calmly, "I promise on everything that's holy, I won't do anything to harm, insult, or disrespect your kids, Thelma, or you. I genuinely want to meet your kids, and I really need to talk to Thelma. I'll even have a qualified nanny to watch over the kids while we talk. After our meeting, if you still want the divorce, I'll stick to our agreement." I thought about it for a moment and figured meeting with Lisa might be the quickest way to settle everything. But I made it clear that if Lisa did anything to upset my kids or Thelma, things would turn ugly fast. "All right, let me check with Thelma," I said. "If she agrees, when and where do you want to meet?" "How about at our house tomorrow morning at 10? Thelma wasn't thrilled about the idea of meeting Lisa. She was worried that seeing them together would make me realize how much better Lisa was. I just brushed it off and told her it was the quickest way to get the divorce done and dusted. The next day, I drove Thelma and my 3 kids to my house with Lisa. Thelma seemed overwhelmed by the size of the estate, but the kids were thrilled about the swimming pool, game room, and ice cream bar I promised them. Instead of walking in as usual, I rang the bell. It was surprising when Lisa answered the door, as there were usually servants around during the day to do that. "David," Lisa greeted with a smile, "you don't need to ring the bell to come home." I wasn't sure what kind of welcome I'd get, I admitted timidly. Lisa introduced us to Helen, the nanny, who seemed friendly. "Helen will take the kids to the pool. We'll be in the kitchen, where you can keep an eye on them." In the kitchen, Lisa offered us drinks. I wanted a scotch, but opted for Pepsi given the circumstances. Thelma chose water, while Lisa poured herself wine. I couldn't help feeling it was unfair. If I'd known there would be alcohol, I would have ordered differently. "Thelma," Lisa began, "David told me you've been together for about 8 years?" "We've spent as much time as we could," Thelma replied nervously. "David insisted we only meet when you were away on trips, but he'd often stop by for an hour or two to see the kids and attend their events." Lisa shot me a strange look. "So, you've been happy with David? Don't you want a full-time husband?" David is the best man I've ever known, Thelma asserted. He's a better husband and father part-time than most men would be full-time. So I'm content with whatever David is willing to give. I understand, Lisa said, wiping away a tear. She turned to me. Would you mind checking on the kids so Thelma and I can talk in private? I glanced at Thelma, who looked really nervous, but she gave me a nod. Since I had the day off, I was in shorts, so I kicked off my sandals and sat by the pool, watching the kids splash around. I couldn't help but wish Lisa had wanted kids and hadn't cheated on me. Occasionally, I peeked through the kitchen window. At first, it seemed like Lisa was doing all the talking. Then Thelma spoke and Lisa started crying. They went back and forth and Thelma seemed to be writing something. Eventually, they hugged each other, both in tears. Lisa then opened a slider and called me back inside. I felt a bit hesitant. Once indoors, I was told to sit in the same chair. I wondered if they still had drinks, but didn't ask. David, Thelma began, holding my hand. We've reached an agreement. Okay, I said cautiously. Is it something I won't like? We'll let you decide, Lisa said. Our agreement is to share you. Talk about a shock. I had come expecting to sort out the divorce details with Lisa. Now I was being told that both women wanted to share me. I'm not sure about this, I said, moving my chair back a bit. Lisa, you cheated on me for nearly 9 years, and yes, I cheated on you for about the same time, but you started it. I don't get why you don't want to be with Gerard all the time. If you divorce me, you're free to do that. Lisa began to cry, and Thelma punched my arm. Why'd you hit me? I asked, more confused and a little irritated. Because Gerard is dead, Thelma said. Oh, I'm sorry, I muttered. I didn't know. David, you're right. I cheated on you, Lisa admitted. Gerard was my first love, and I didn't get over him until I met you. He broke up with me when I told him I didn't want any children. I was crushed by his decision, but I refused to back down. About 3 years after we were married, I ran into Gerard on one of my trips. His wife had died, and he was devastated. I wanted to be there to help him through his difficult time. He had truly loved Teresa. Anyway, one thing led to another, and we started our affair. Yes, I did love Gerard, but I loved you every bit as much as him, maybe more. At the time of Gerard's massive heart attack, he was pressuring me to divorce you and marry him. I told him that there was no way I was leaving you. I loved you too much. Now I couldn't stand it if you left me, David. And I know you still love me, even though you've had a family with Thelma. So you know that it is possible to love two people at the same time. I realize now that I can't have you all the time, but I, like Thelma, want whatever you're willing to give me. I exhaled heavily and slouched in my chair. While some guys might dream of this scenario, all I could see was potential trouble. Every fiber of my being screamed that two women wanting the same man was a disaster waiting to happen. I looked from Lisa to Thelma and then back again. Both women's eyes held hope and fear. So I decided to act clueless. How exactly would this work? I inquired. Thelma then took out a notepad and went over the plan. The agreement was pretty detailed, but the main points were that Lisa would stay in the main bedroom, while Thelma and the kids would have the other part of the house with 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms. I'd spend Monday, Wednesday, and Friday nights with Thelma, and Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday nights with Lisa. Sundays, I could sleep wherever I wanted. Just because I'd sleep with one woman didn't mean we'd always have closeness. That would be up to each couple. But if one of them wasn't up for it, I couldn't go to the other. There were more rules, but that was the gist of it. I said I needed time to think. I wasn't sure about the whole thing, but both of them said it was either sharing or nothing. I wasn't entirely convinced. I thought maybe one of them would want me full-time. But then I started worrying. What if they were serious? Would I lose both of them? Anyway, I had a trip planned for the next day, so I said I'd decide when I got back. Surprisingly, I managed to work despite having this huge decision hanging over me. But on the flight home after finalizing a deal, I realized I'd already made my choice. I agreed to the arrangement. Thelma went to her brother to draw up the new agreement. He was shocked when he heard what it was about. After Thelma explained it, his first reaction was, "Holy crap! David, I hate you so much!" I knew he was joking, so I joked back. "You could get a mistress yourself," I suggested, and got a smack from Thelma. "I wouldn't dare," Tim confessed. "Gloria would end me." The agreement seemed to be going fine until around 7 months in. I can't say my bed life has gotten a lot busier, but it's more consistent now. I'm having closeness at least 3 times a week, sometimes even 4 or 5. Since there was a nanny to watch the kids, Thelma came back to work at my office. At first, Lisa wasn't too happy about it, but she made things work by hiring Thelma with a higher salary and better benefits. Now Thelma works for Lisa and seems pretty content. About a week before the 7th month mark, both women caught me as I got home from work. They said there was an issue with the agreement that needed to be changed. I'm thinking, oh great, what now? Can my life get any more messed up? Turns out it could. They sat me down at the dining table and Lisa got straight to the point. David, I want to have a baby. I was baffled, but then again, confusion had become my usual state of mind living with these two. I never would have guessed in a million years that Lisa would want to talk about having a baby. I know I said I didn't want kids, Lisa admitted softly, but seeing how happy you are with yours and how much they love you, I want that too. What could I say? All I managed was, okay, and apparently that was the right answer because both of them were thrilled, hugging and kissing me. But then, Lisa dropped the bomb. Also, David, Thelma and I have talked, and we think it's best if I'm not married to you anymore. Now I was in panic mode. It sounded like they wanted me to get Lisa pregnant and then kick me out. I knew they were close, but I never expected them to fall for each other and want to kick me to the curb. I want to make sure I understand, I said, turning to Lisa. You're asking me to get you pregnant, and then you both want to kick me out. That's not something I'm interested in. If you want me gone, just say the word and I'll leave peacefully. But if you think you're going to keep me from my kids, you've got another thing coming. Thelma's voice shot up 3 octaves. What? No, David, you've got it all wrong, Lisa rushed to explain, her face turning red. I didn't explain it properly. We don't want you gone, David, Thelma chimed in, rushing to hug me. I love you more than anything. It would devastate me if you left. I feel the same way, Lisa added, tears streaming down her face. Well then, I'm completely lost, I said, frustrated. I need a drink. I didn't care if it wasn't part of the plan. I think we could all use a drink, Lisa said, taking my hand. Once we're calm, I'll try to explain better what we want. But David, know that we'll respect whatever decision you make. All right, Lisa, I said after downing my first scotch. Start with the baby. Are you sure about this? It's a big change for you. Having another baby wasn't something they discussed before. But seeing Thelma and I having fun with our kids must have stirred something in Lisa. Eventually, she felt a strong desire to have a child of her own. This meant we needed to adjust the agreement to let Lisa spend more time with me, especially when she thought she might be able to conceive. When we told Tim about the new change, he nearly choked. He kept saying how much he hated me until I reminded him what it was like with a newborn. It took 4 months, but eventually, Lisa became pregnant and gave birth to a beautiful baby girl named Charlotte. She inherited her mother's eyes and my smile. Thelma and the kids absolutely adore her. As for the proposed divorce, it was just another twist in my chaotic married life. When Lisa mentioned not being married to me, it was just another part of the constant changes in our agreement. Specifically, Lisa wasn't suggesting an immediate divorce, nor was she suggesting a permanent split. During one of their many talks, Thelma expressed concern about the stigma her kids might face for being born out of wedlock. Lisa agreed and proposed a solution. With her substantial wealth, she could practically buy anything. The new plan involved me divorcing Lisa after our child was born. Then I would marry Thelma, but Lisa would arrange the paperwork to show that we were married when our kids were born. Later, Thelma and I would divorce, and I would remarry Lisa. If you're confused, imagine how I felt. Some of you might be thinking about the financial aspect of the prenup. Honestly, it never crossed my mind, but Lisa had it covered. The agreement was written to ensure that the change in marital status didn't nullify the original terms. By then, though, I wasn't too concerned about the money. I was guaranteed at least $5 million from the original agreement, and my wise investments had grown that to another $6 million. It was reassuring to know that Lisa was watching out for my interests. Shortly after Charlotte's birth, I signed the divorce papers and married Thelma. Somehow, Lisa managed to update the marriage records to show my supposed marriage to Thelma. I asked her why we went through the ceremony instead of just changing the records, but she said it was a women's thing, so I dropped the subject. I stayed married to Thelma for a year, then divorced her to remarry Lisa. Another year later, I divorced Lisa again to remarry Thelma. I can't explain why, they simply told me they both liked being officially married to me. The only downside of Lisa having a child was that her parents wanted to visit more often to see their new grandchild. This messed up our living arrangement, and I was pretty sure Lisa's parents weren't buying her excuse about needing her assistant nearby. Plus, I'd catch them giving me looks when they thought I wasn't paying attention. Lisa's mom seemed impressed, while her dad looked jealous. You're probably wondering what the kids thought about our unique family setup. When they were young, they didn't think much about it. But as they grow older, we'll tell them that their moms are good friends, and I've been married to each of them at different times. We'll keep it simple. When they hit their teenage years, they'll likely realize that our family is a bit different from others. Tim checks in with me about every other month for updates. I think he lives vicariously through me. I know our situation is messed up, but I love my kids and my wives. Thankfully, we have enough money to make it all work. As I mentioned earlier, my life is chaotic, but it's chaotic in a strangely good way.